Hey everybody, today's story is Ghost Encounter.
I was a typical 19-year-old teenager who lived with my parents and my siblings in Jamaica. I enjoyed playing soccer with friends and I was the best. One Sunday afternoon at the game, I saw this beautiful girl staring at me. I said to my friend beside me, "Look who is looking at me." He smirked and said, "You're the man." After the game had finished, I went over to where she was standing and introduced myself as Patrick. She in return says, "I am Cindy. Nice to meet you." She then mentioned having a boyfriend, which, however, never stopped us from dating. At first, Cindy was living about 2 miles from where I lived, but she wanted to be closer to me, so she rented an apartment about 1 block from me. We were sneaking around, making our relationship private because she was already with someone, and my mother knew and told me to end it. I was persistent nevertheless and kept seeing Cindy. I would go to her house about 10:30 at night and leave by 3 in the morning. One day I was home and my father came to me and said, "You need to stop going out and coming in at that time because it is not safe." I in turn told him I was fine and not to mention it to mom. My grandmother and my father used to tell me about ghost stories when I was small. I never believed they were true, but my experience said otherwise. It was the middle of December 1996, I believe on a Friday. I went to Cindy's house at my regular time. We would watch movies, play games, and have fun on a whole. We went to bed and I woke up about 3:30 a.m. I kissed Cindy and told her I was going home. After stepping outside, I had this feeling in my stomach, a scary feeling. Maybe it's too dark, I muttered to myself, because I was always paranoid and afraid of the dark when I was growing up. However, I shrugged it off and proceeded to my home. The path from Cindy's house to my house was dark and bushy. It was as if I could hold the darkness in the palm of my hand. After reaching about 10 to 15 meters from my house, I saw the silhouette of a man dressed in what appears to be red and black sweater and a pair of black jeans leaning against a light pole opposite my bottom gate looking in my yard. Who the hell is that? I thought to myself. Why is that man standing there at this hour? Oh, maybe it's one of my cousin's boyfriend, merely because I would always see them and their boyfriends at this hour. I was a bit relieved, but deep down inside, I was still scared. I took off my white t-shirt I had on and drew close to a fence and stood there for about 5 minutes, looking at the man. I then formulated a plan to prank the person and scare him. I walked slowly along the side of the fence and, in that same breath, trying to see the face of the person. When I reached my top gate, I could see that the person had no head. My knees started to get weak and my heart started racing like a horse. Its body spun around facing me and I saw the person's body starts to extend as if it was elastic. The man's body grew as tall as a tree. I was terrified, and at this point, I knew I had seen a ghost. My thoughts began to race through my mind, and all I could hear was my parents warning me to stop walking late at nights. I decided to make a run for it. This ghost would have to catch me running. I bolted through the gate with a speed greater than the fastest man on earth. I stopped at my door feeling relieved and looked, but to my surprise, the ghost stepped over the fence with its long legs and stood in the dark watching me. I quickly grabbed the keys and hurried inside my house, ensuring the door behind me was locked. My dad heard the commotion and came into my room. The look on his face told me he knew what had happened. He looked me dead in the eyes and walked away without saying a word. At this point, I knew I had learned my lesson. I told myself that no forces on earth could get me to walk that late again. But that thought changed when my sweet pea called me to come to see her the following night.
This is quite an interesting story, and this is in fact a true story. It was actually shared by someone who I actually know, and they have shared the story before. This story is what we would call in Jamaica a Duppy story. I remember when I was younger how my grandparents would share their encounter with, you know, a ghost, or what we would call in Jamaica a Duppy. And it was quite entertaining at nights, but after listening to these stories, trust me, you're scared to go to bed. And just listening to this brings back a lot of memories. So, viewers and subscribers, have you ever had an encounter with a ghost or a Duppy? Please drop it in the comment section. I know that personally, I had an encounter with a ghost back in, I think it was 2007. I was living in an apartment at the time, work and travel program, and I was home alone. All the other guys were at work, and that was just my day off. And it was the first time I've ever had a day off by myself. So I was home, I was cooking, and I was sitting around this table, and the front door was open. Now, in that house, we had many people living there. So downstairs, we had the Jamaicans, and then upstairs, we had the Russians. I've never been upstairs. And that particular day, I was there and cooking and just, minding my business. And for some reason, I was looking down on my phone. But then I saw when someone entered the house, and by the time I looked up, I was just in time to see when the person, was closing the door, and I could see one foot going upstairs. Based on how the house was made, I could actually see just one foot going up the stairs. I was not able to see the stairs, but you could actually see if somebody's going up there. I really didn't pay it any mind because, as I said before, the Russians lived upstairs. But I was there, and there were no movements upstairs. And that was kind of frightening to me. So I started calling the girls that lived upstairs. No one. I got scared, and I decided that I was going to go up there just to see if maybe the person went to bed or something. And to my surprise, when I went up there was nobody up there. So you know that I spent the rest of the day outside until the other Jamaicans came home from work. And I was sharing the story with them. Apparently, they probably did not believe me because a few weeks later, one of the guys told me that, hey, you know what? I was home one day, and I started to hear this commotion upstairs. And when I went up there there was no one up there. So that was my first hand experience with a ghost. And I don't know, you can't tell me that that was not a ghost, because there was no wind. That was the only door that was opened, and I could tell you that I actually saw somebody closing the door and the foot going upstairs. So go ahead, guys, and share your stories with us. The email address is in the description. We have also added a WhatsApp number as well to the description. So if you would like to send us a voice note or you'd rather text, that is fine. We will actually share your story on our platform. Thank you guys so much once again for listening, and do have yourself a wonderful day. And until next time, we'll see you. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.